This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Stick around to the end of the video for a special offer they're making available through my channel. Gamers! I wish I could say it's been a good week, but the sad reality is that we are sliding backwards as a species, because this week we learned that actual IRL cars are getting microtransactions. BMW are adding a subscription service to their newer model of cars where you have to pay a monthly fee to use the seat warmers in your car, like a virus. Microtransactions and bullshit subscription services are spreading from gaming into every other industry. It's $180 a year to be able to warm your ass in those cushy BMW seats, which makes it roughly the same price as a Fallout 76 subscription. I'll let you be the judge of which one is a bigger scam. P.S. The answer is always Fallout 76. It hasn't been all bad though. For this week, I discovered the joy of power washing, something I'm very keen to talk about later in the episode. We've got a release date for God of War Ragnarok, so that's pretty rad. And we got official confirmation that E3 is making a return, which makes me happy because I'm not a fan of these scripted webinars. This is a weekly show that is heavily reliant on cringe, and E3 is one of the most reliable sources of cringe known to man, so I'm glad it's coming back. Alright, I'm going to assume your interest is sufficiently piqued. Here comes the news. As you might have heard, Ubisoft are hosting an anniversary celebration at the moment, and this year, instead of giving us presents, they're taking them away. It started last week when Ubisoft revealed that they were decommissioning online features and delisting DLC for a whole bunch of games, including stuff like Assassin's Creed 2 and 3, Far Cry 3, Ghost Recon Future Soldier, and Rayman Legends. By and large, this involved disabling any multiplayer servers, or even the ability to play peer-to-peer multiplayer content. This is disappointing, but it's also something that we're kind of used to at this point, as publishers will generally begin to turn off multiplayer features after a number of years, depending on how those features were first set up. Where things get really funky is access to DLC you had already purchased would be disabled as a result of the decommissioning of these online services, because Ubisoft set up certain DLC to require online authentication. So if you purchase some in-game items or some mission packs or whatever, which could be used in single-player scenarios, you are still going to lose access to this stuff. Instead of Ubisoft doing the right thing and patching these games to include all of the DLC for free, they decided the best course of action was essentially to steal them from those who had already purchased it. But Ubisoft were just getting warmed up, because a few days later, they issued warnings on the Steam pages for both Assassin's Creed Liberation HD and Silent Hunter 5, which were both already delisted, but come September, these warnings said you wouldn't be able to access these games anymore, meaning that you couldn't play them even if you already owned them. These are single-player, offline games that people purchased, some of them as recently as the Steam sale last week, where they were discounted by up to 75%, and now Ubisoft were yeeting them from people's Steam libraries. The internet was unanimous in its response, saying, quote, "Yar," end quote. People rightly pointed out that when a company gives you no legal means of purchasing their product, then the only way to obtain that product is through piracy. And I think piracy is kind of not the right word here, because it's kind of synonymous with stealing or theft or whatever, but it's not theft when it's preserving games or guaranteeing people's long-term ownership of those games. That's important work, and it's only going to become more important as more and more games are entirely dependent on online ecosystems. Ubisoft would later go on to clarify that you'd still be able to access those games if you had earlier purchased them. This doesn't make sense, because that's not what those warnings on Steam said, and if this is taking effect in September, then why won't you be continuing to sell these games until then and then delist them? And why delist them at all if they're still going to be playable? Well, none of this makes any sense. It all sounds like bullshit, just a backtrack disguised as a clarification. Proving that irony is alive and well, this week Ubisoft provided a first look at the gameplay for the rebooted Skull and Bones, a game that has as its motto, "Long live piracy." God bless you, Ubisoft marketing team. You guys are the real MVPs in this. The gameplay was actually leaked a number of months back. That's when I first saw it. Take a look for yourself.
I'll go long distance style. Oh, I don't have an auxiliary weapon equipped. Okay, it's okay.
This one's done almost right here.
Trying to board him. Oh, I'm too far away.
So, I don't think this looks good. Interestingly, it looks basically the same as the E3 demo I played back in 2018. So 4 years ago, I played this, and it's the same. And even then, when I played it, I was like, this is just Assassin's Creed Naval Combat. You've just lifted and dropped this, only now I can't get out of my boat? I mean, you can sort of. You can walk around this hub area thing, but That's really only so Ubisoft can sell pirate cosmetics. They tried the shit in Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and it was very naked in its intention, and it was terrible. The whole game was like, you're the only one on this island who can save us. And then you'd zone into the hub area and see like 400 people all wearing double beer can hats. The real low point of this trailer for me though was when you had to collect wood or ore or whatever, and you would literally shoot the cliffs with your cannon to mine it, and your boat would just magically cut down trees by sitting next to them. It's ridiculous. I mean, Assassin's Creed Black Flag exists. Sea of Thieves exists. I have no idea why Skull and Bones exists, but I guess we'll find out when it launches on November 8th, one day before God of War Ragnarok, so, you know, good luck with that. Many of us doubted that Skull and Bones would ever see the light of day, and that wasn't the only Ubi title stuck in development limbo. After an impressive debut a number of years back, Beyond Good and Evil 2 has gone completely radio silent for years, leading me to suspect, myself included, that this was vaporware and it was never coming out. Well, hopefully I was wrong about that, because this week Tom Henderson is reporting that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is alive and well, and it's about to enter external playtesting this month. Apparently this will be a fairly extensive playtest, more so than usual, so hopefully this means that the team has made good progress in development, but that's a very optimistic reading of the tea leaves. Ubisoft has announced a Ubisoft Forward webinar thing for September 10th, which is really far off by the way, so if we're going to get any answers about Beyond Good and Evil 2, it's probably going to be there. One final bit of Ubisoft news is that The Division is coming to mobile. Ubisoft announced this last week with a cinematic trailer that they claim was using in-engine footage captured on mobile. It's looking to be a sort of port of The Division 1, but with a twist, I think. That could be cool, I'm definitely interested, but Diablo Immortal has made me very gun-shy about discussing mobile games until we get full visibility of their monetization model. So while I hope that this is just a cool Division game with reasonably priced microtransactions, I'm really bracing for the worst, and I won't be doing any actual coverage of this until I know how Ubi plan to charge us for it. Alright, so that was a lot of Ubisoft news. We need a palate cleanser. How about a first look at gameplay for that Robocop game? Roll it, Austin.
Shots fired.
I'd buy that for $1. Now listen, I don't think I could ever properly communicate to you how much I love Robocop. Like if pressed and someone was pointing a gun at my nuts and they were like, tell me a favorite movie, I'd be like, Hook. But then number 2 would be Robocop. I just rewatched it recently in 4K and it's the perfect film. There's literally no flaws. It's a masterpiece. And even if this game is total trash, which it doesn't look to be by the way, I'm still gonna play the shit out of it and probably enjoy every second of it. Bitches leave! Probably my favorite line in any movie. Anyway, talk of the Robocop movie has put me in a good mood, so let's keep the good times rolling. Did you know that Apex Legends developer Respawn Entertainment are currently working on a single-player, first-person shooter set in the Apex Legends universe? Well, they are, and that's awesome, because it gets us one step closer to the Holy Grail, a follow-up to the Titanfall 2 campaign. So the detail on this first, spotted by Alpha Intel, a job posting on Respawn's website calls for a hard surface artist to work on a new single-player title set in the Apex Legends universe. So that's official confirmation right there, since the source is Respawn themselves. As for the phrase set in the Apex Legends universe, that's where things get especially exciting because the Apex Legends universe is also the Titanfall universe. Obviously, the Battle Royale game focuses on different aspects of that universe, but they are connected in a variety of ways, with one of the playable characters actually being the daughter of a Titanfall pilot, and she has some cool Titanfall stuff baked into her kit. So is this Titanfall 3 by another name? No, I think we need to face into the reality that as beloved as Titanfall is, it wasn't a commercial success for Respawn or EA. Contrast that with Apex Legends, which is an absolutely gigantic success by every possible metric, and it's still growing. There's of course plenty of upside to doing a dedicated Titanfall game, but the reality is that there's going to be a lot more upside couching that experience in the Apex Legends side of things. Still, I'm confident that Respawn are going to find a way to bridge the gap here, giving Titanfall fans a few things to make them happy, which is obviously better than nothing. This isn't the only single-player FPS in the works, because it looks like the Battlefield franchise may be making a return to the solo campaign front as it tries to rebuild its brand after the disastrous launch of Battlefield 2042. The news again comes from a job listing, only this time it was for EA's Seattle studio, headed by former Bungie developer Marcus Lido, who went on to create the ill-fated Disintegration before moving back to the more familiar world of AAA first-person shooter development. The job listing, first spotted by Video Game Chronicle, calls for a design director who would, quote, orchestrate the mission design, narrative, game mechanics, and systems to create the highest quality experience possible, end quote. That's pretty cool, to be honest. Battlefield's campaigns, the older ones at least, are still talked about to this day, and it's nice to know that EA haven't given up on trying to recreate that magic. Let's hope this newly formed Seattle studio is up to the task. One more bit of single-player shooter news while we're at it. You know Black Mesa, the remake of Half-Life? Well, it's getting remade, sort of, in Half-Life engine. Okay, let me explain. Black Mesa was a very faithful recreation of the original game, but it certainly did expand on the base product, adding new scripted moments, making subtle changes to level design, and also adding what was essentially an entirely new third act to the game with the redesigned Zen. Some modders are so impressed with the Black Mesa devs team work that they're taking it upon themselves to port all of that back into the original Half-Life Gold Source engine. The mod is called Black Mesa Classic, and the YouTube channel Radiation Hazard did a great video breaking things down and showing some side-by-side comparisons of the original Half-Life versus this new demake mod, and it looks pretty great. If you're keen to learn more, I'll leave a link to Radiation Hazard's video below the like button. Okay, so Marvel Avengers. We've had our fun with this one over the years, haven't we? But even I look at this next story and think to myself, oh man, that is rough. So here's the setup. This was the official Xbox Twitch channel, and they were hosting an event to hype the newly released Jane Foster variant of the Thor character in-game. The stream was going well until the host decided that he would reveal something he wasn't supposed to reveal, and the reaction from the Crystal Dynamics developer was, yeah, he was not happy.
My acting coach is actually the voice of She-Hulk. And I won't say her name because I don't know if that was public knowledge yet. I think it is. It was announced. But
Nope. We've never announced She-Hulk. We don't announce things, you know.
Oh, then never mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not, but
I know that ran a little long, but I think it was worth the walk. I don't think I've ever seen a more awkward and displeased reaction to a live reveal than that, and I think that in future, Crystal Dynamics are likely to stick with pre-recorded events. Speaking of Marvel, we got our first proper look at gameplay for Marvel Midnight Suns. Fire Access are putting out a bunch of character spotlights, and so far they've covered both Cap and Iron Man. I gotta say, I like the look of this a lot. I know not everyone does, but yeah, man, it's working for me. I know the card-based system has strategy purists a little on edge, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Hell, it can't be any worse than missing those 99% chance to hit shots at blank range that XCOM became famous for. I'm loving this new take on costumes and ability sets. I'm loving the roster of heroes. I'm loving these animations. The whole thing is just clicking for me big time, and I'm pretty keen to get stuck into this when it launches on October 7th. Speaking of gameplay drops, we got our first proper look at Gollum this week, and I can see why IGN called this one Mount Doomed. Take a look.
Must stay in the shadows.
This is not looking particularly precious. It looks super last gen, like a borderline PS3 game at times, which is a barb that gets carelessly thrown around a lot, but I feel it's sort of accurate this time. Really simple looking environments and character models that are a bit weird looking and really muddy textures. Gameplay that looks really bare bones. I don't know, man, trailers are meant to show you a game in its best possible light, and if this is the best, then I'd be a little worried, especially given that this is out on September 1st, and that is soon. Okay, so this is big news. E3 is back, whether we like it or not. During the Summer Games Fest in June, E3 organizer, the ESA, was all like, oh yeah, we're totally doing E3 next year, and everyone was like, sure buddy, whatever. This is an organization that has categorically mismanaged every aspect of E3 for years, and at this point, we wouldn't trust them to organize a pie eating contest, let alone the biggest event on gaming's calendar. I gotta hand it to them though, because it seems like the ESA knew their limits, and this week they announced that not only would E3 return to LA next year, but they'd be organizing it in conjunction with ReedPop. ReedPop are pretty much the biggest name in nerd conventions, being the organizing body behind stuff like New York Comic Con, Star Wars Celebration, and the big one, PAX, which is an event that now takes place at multiple locations throughout the world, including one here in Australia. ReedPop aren't perfect because event management is a very messy art form, but they do know what they're doing, and so having them at the E3 table is a big shot in the arm in terms of expertise and experience. I'm more hopeful about the future of E3 after this announcement, and I genuinely am rooting for them because, as I've said many times before, I love E3, and I want it to continue to exist in some way, shape, or form. Alright, let's do a quick lightning round to finish. South Africa just updated its video game classification laws, and the new guidance is that no child under the age of 10 is allowed to play any video game unless they are accompanied by an adult. Good luck enforcing that one, South Africa. Fall Guys just hit 50 million players, not 2 weeks after hitting a new record of 20 million players with the move to free-to-play. That's an increase of a lot of players. Seriously though, congrats to Mediatonic, that's a pretty remarkable achievement. Nintendo fans worked themselves into a tiz this past week when Nintendo delisted a number of console trailer videos on their YouTube channel, leading some to suspect that the announcement of a new upgraded Nintendo Switch was imminent. What did they actually get? A Switch OLED with a Splatoon paint job. Never underestimate Nintendo's fans' ability to disappoint themselves. They do it better than anybody else. Apparently, we were going to get remasters of both GTA 4 and Red Dead Redemption, but seeing how bad the backlash to the GTA trilogy was, Rockstar has shelved these projects so they can focus on GTA 6. Probably for the best, to be honest, but I would have loved another one of those GTA remake news cycles. That was a very fun couple of weeks. And finally, a Korean streamer was stuck in a 3-hour League of Legends match because their teammates and the opposition were stream sniping her. She died a total of 120 times during the match and would often take breaks to go and play other games while she waited for the trolls to give up. They never did, but by some miracle the game ended, and what did the streamer get for their trouble? A 14-day ban from Riot. Love it. It was likely an automated ban related to her number of deaths, but it's still pretty funny. Absolutely huge week for announcements, and only 2 delays, both of them kind of minor, so that's alright. First up, we have Valkyrie Elysium, the latest in the long-running series that dates back to 1999. It's got a release date September 29th for PS4 and 5, and November 11th for Steam. I wasn't really paying attention to this one, but I sat down and watched the new lengthy trailer that they just put out, and it looked pretty good. A very grand JRPG experience, pulling in elements of Norse mythology, and the combat looked nice, and I don't know, my interest is piqued, and if I can find time for this one at the end of September, I'd be keen to boot it up. Curse to Golf was a really nice golfing game meets deck builder that I played and covered during the recent Steam Next Fest. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm keen to play through it when it arrives on its newly announced release date, August 18th for all platforms. Awkward! Nickelodeon are releasing a new kart racing game, but the existence of the title was revealed by our favorite source, a retailer, who just blurted it out on their website. Love it when that happens. At least one retailer put up a listing a few days early, prompting the developer Game Mill Entertainment to confirm the existence of the title. It's called Nickelodeon Kart Racer 3 Slime Speedway, and it's promising a roster of over 40 fully voiced characters, 36 tracks, and support for both split screen and online multiplayer. Sounds like a cool package, no release date for it yet, but it arrives northern fall this year for all platforms. Inscription was one of the most beloved games of last year, topping more than a few Game of the Year lists despite its underground indie status. It has been exclusive to PC to this point, but it just got announced for PlayStation consoles. No release date yet, no word on other platforms yet either, but you have to guess they'll follow sometime after this PlayStation exclusive window wraps up. Hey, here's something that got my juices flowing. This is a Terminator survival game. Like, hell yes, absolutely. How has there not been a Terminator survival game to this point? Surviving in the remains of old LA, scavenging machine parts to build shelter and weapons, fighting off different models of Terminator, and oh my god, it sounds so good. This trailer is literally just a reveal teaser. The game doesn't even have a name yet, but it's in development by Nacon Milan. I get the feeling this one isn't coming anytime soon, so expect an early access release sometime next year if we're lucky. Lollipop Chainsaw is not a game I ever played or even really knew about, to be honest. For whatever reason, I totally missed this one back in the day, but apparently it was very special, being the result of a collaboration between Yoshimi Yasuda, Suda51, and James Gunn of Guardians of the Galaxy fame, who wrote the script for the game. The title fell into disrepair over the last few years, being unplayable on PC or newer consoles. This week, the original developer, Dragami Games, announced that they are doing a remake with enhanced visuals, but they did flag that the soundtrack will be mostly new due to licensing challenges. It'll be out sometime next year, no specific word on platforms yet. And finally, the release date announcement we've all been waiting for. God of War Ragnarok, let's go! After months of begging and pleading and Santa Monica developers being harassed, Jesus Christ, we finally have a release date for the concluding chapter in Kratos' Norse-based saga, November 9th, arriving for both PS4 and PS5. It's a very big understatement for me to say that I'm excited about this one, and I suspect I'm not alone in that, since God of War 2018 won Game of the Year that year and achieved near mythic status in terms of review scores. True story, God of War's PC port is the highest rated game on Steam for all of 2022. So it's not just console gamers who love this. Really cannot wait. I know we shouldn't let ourselves get too carried away, but I strongly suspect that this is going to be pretty incredible. Only 2 quick delay announcements to shout out this week. The first is for Wayward Strand, an upcoming narrative-led adventure game set in Australia. That got bumped back a little and is now launching September 15th on all platforms. And finally, Forspoken got a delay. Now this was originally meant to release October 11th, but the general consensus from everyone was like, this probably needs more dev time. And insiders were also leaking that we could probably expect a delay. Sure enough, the delay.jpg went out this week on the Forspoken Twitter account, saying that they'd made the strategic decision to delay the game to Jan 24 next year. They did say the game is essentially finished now and is now in its polishing phase, so you have to wonder if this is a move to launch in a less busy window, or if they simply needed more time to finalize development. Either way, we'll find out in Jan. I know there are a lot of eyes on this one, mine included, so I'm hoping that extra dev time delivers a better final product, since the build I saw a little whiles back was pretty shaky. So what came out last week? Well, as I said, it was a bit of a quiet one, but we did get one last-minute surprise, courtesy of CD Projekt Red of all developers. The game is a standalone single-player experience that's based on their Gwent card game, which itself was an offshoot of the game that first appeared as a mini-game in The Witcher 3. Gwent has already had one single-player expansion thing in the form of the very well-received Thronebreaker, which is essentially a CRPG combined with a card game. This new offering is called Rogue Mage, and it's much closer to something like Slay the Spire than it is anything else. It's light on story and fanfare, keeping things pretty squarely focused on the roguelike deck-building gameplay. Unfortunately, there aren't any critic reviews for this one yet, at least none that I could find, but there are Steam reviews, and they are pretty mid, with the game currently sitting at a mixed 61% on Steam. Positive reviews say it's a lightweight but worthwhile expansion, not a huge amount to it, but worth the $10 price tag. Negative reviews say it's essentially Slay the Spire, but worse, absent the narrative that CD Projekt Red are known for and lacking in content. This is pretty cheap at $10, but at the same time, Gwent is free to play, so if you're at all interested, you may want to start with that one first. Matchpoint is a tennis game that arrived last week for all platforms. This one has also met fairly middling reviews, sitting at 77% mostly positive on Steam, but critics were a little harsher, putting it at a fair 66 on OpenCritic. IGN were at the bottom end of the spectrum, scoring it a 5 out of 10 and saying, quote, Matchpoint Tennis Championship serves up a smooth playing game of tennis, but saddles it with a subpar career mode and under-featured multiplayer, end quote. GameSpew, though, were more impressed, scoring at a 7 out of 10 and saying, quote, by simply providing a fun and fairly authentic game of tennis, it manages to outshine its rivals, end quote. Not sure what those rivals are, by the way. What are the other tennis games that are coming out right now? Just a heads up that this one is out on Game Pass, so if you'd like to take a punt on it, then that'll be the best way to do it. Anyway, finally, Arcade-Geddon launched for PlayStation, Xbox, and on the Epic Game Store last week, where it had earlier been in early access. No Steam reviews for this one, obviously, and only a handful of critic scores to draw from, currently putting the game at a fair 72 on OpenCritic. GameSpot were not thrilled with this one, scoring at a 5 out of 10 and saying, quote, this forgettable genre blender chases several trends but adds nothing of note to any of them, end quote. Ouch. But God as a Geek was more than impressed, scoring at an 8.5 and saying, quote, bright and colourful, charming and replayable, Arcade-Geddon offers a cathartic thrill while promising to scratch that ever-present loot itch, end quote. Don't forget that this one is sort of free this month for PS Plus, so you can try it there if you're part of the Sony Pony Army. So what's coming out this week? Not much. Very little indeed. We do have Loot Mancer on the way, arriving exclusively to PC today, but I believe there are console ports on the way at some point. This is a slick-looking 2D, 3D action platformer hybrid with a cyberpunk aesthetic. It looks cool and fast and flashy, but I don't know, just something about the gameplay looks a little off to me. I've seen some previews that echo that sentiment as well, so perhaps wait for reviews on this one to see how it lands. Escape Academy is one title that I know people are going to love. I know because it was playable at the Summer Games Fest in LA last month, and everyone that I met that played it absolutely loved it. It's essentially an escape room puzzle game thing, and you can play it co-op, and it's just meant to be good, wholesome fun. It's hitting all platforms but the Switch on the 14th, and it's day one on Game Pass. Not bad. Rune Factory 5 is hitting PC on the 15th. This one was released on the Switch a little whiles back, and as I understand it, it's kind of like a Stardew Valley game, but the series dates back to a time when we might have referred to this as a Harvest Moon game. Stardew Valley really snatched the crown on that one. Anyway, PC on the 15th, no word on PlayStation or Xbox releases as yet. Unironically, the title that I am most excited about this week is Power Wash Simulator. Now I know what you're thinking. Why the fuck would I want to play a video game about cleaning things? It's a good question, and it's one I answered in detail in my review of the game, which went up last night. Let me just say that we all, on some deep, messed up level, like cleaning things. We just can't be bothered to actually do it. Power Wash Simulator understands this, and it gives you the joy and satisfaction of cleaning without demanding any of the actual effort or exertion. This thing is the most zen-like game I've played all year, and I'm absolutely going back for more until I've hosed down every last surface. I really do believe that people are going to love this, and since it's out on Game Pass day one on the 18th for PC and Xbox, I reckon this is going to go very large indeed. If you want to learn more, I'll leave a link to my review below the like button. Put this on your radar. So recently I was cruising Steam 250, which is a website that force ranks Steam games using a weighted calculation, and I saw that this newly released early access title was one of the highest rated games of the year. I bought it, I downloaded it, I played it, and I loved it. It's simple, but you can tell the people who are making it really know what they're doing. The pixel art is so expressive of both environmental detail and the reactions of the characters. The characters and the story are really well written, the action is super fluid and with a really high skill ceiling that you'd love to see speedrunners get stuck into. It's essentially a 2D platformer, but it's built around the use of a grapple, and when you get a good rhythm with this thing, you start to feel like some kind of behatted Spider-Man. There's only 3 chapters for this out at the moment, with the rest to come later, but I do predict big things for this one. You can try the early access now, or you can wait for the 1.0 release. No specific date for that yet. At the very least, I'd recommend putting it on your wish list. If you want to do that, I've left a link to it on my Steam Curator page, where you'll also find links to every other Put This On Your Radar title. That link's below the like button. Yes, hit the like button. Sort of free stuff time, and this is a huge week, and you better pay attention because the biggest and best deals for this week expire in the next few hours, for real. I'm talking about Prime Day, which I don't love as a concept because I don't think corporations should be aiming to capture whole days like some sort of national holiday. Regardless, Uncle Jeff is discounting stuff left, right, and center on his Amazon storefront. Gamers are getting the best deals though, because if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, which costs like $5 a month or whatever, then right now, for the next few hours, you can get around 25 smaller titles, as well as Star Wars Republic Commando, Jedi Knight 1 and 2, Need for Speed Heat, Grid Legends, and to top all of that off, and I can scarcely believe it, the Mass Effect Trilogy Legendary Edition, the excellent remasters of the cinematic RPG masterpieces, arguably some of the best sci-fi across any medium, full stop. You can get all of that for like $5. But like I said, do it fast because Prime Day ends on the 13th, and then these deals are gone. Sadly, the remainder of the sort of free stuff of the week isn't anywhere near as exciting, but we'll do it anyway. Epic is back, of course, as always, and last week's lineup is still live, including turn-based RPG Ancient Enemy and the co-op Left 4 Dead style shooter Killing Floor 2. Commencing the 15th, though, is some free content for a game called Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realm. I don't know anything about that one. In terms of actual video games, you can grab Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap, a 2D platformer with some nice art and some solid Steam reviews. Perhaps I spoke a little too soon when I said we were done with the sort of free stuff bangers, because this week, Game Pass members are getting their hands on My Friend Peppa Pig. That's right, Peppa and George and Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig and Susie Sheep and Pedro Pony and the ever-versatile Miss Rabbit. They're teaming up for their greatest adventure yet. Forget God of War, forget Breath of the Wild 2, forget Half-Life 3. This is it, gamers. And Uncle Phil is giving this away for basically nothing. Everybody loves Uncle Phil. That's a Peppa reference, by the way, just trust me on that. Anyway, if you'd prefer something a little more kosher, then can I interest you in the Matchpoint tennis game I mentioned earlier? That's on Game Pass. A bunch of Yakuza games are coming back on the service after having been removed a while back, okay then. Road 96 is a procedurally generated road trip simulator that people really loved. I still plan to circle back on that one myself. Escape Academy is that indie title I mentioned earlier, and that's also there, day one. And Game of the Year contender Power Wash Simulator is also in the mix, hitting console, cloud, and PC on the 18th. I know you're all still skeptical, but by next week, I fully expect my comment section to be like, oh my god, all I've been playing all week is Power Wash Simulator, I can't stop. And I'll be like, I told you, just watch, you'll see. We haven't done any no fucking thanks news this week, so why don't we kill 2 apes with 1 stone here in the feel-good story of the week block. Brazil recently held its International Games Festival, an event that brought together game makers, media, the public, and the investor class to showcase the future of video games. The event had a variety of sponsors, including a not insignificant number of NFT, blockchain, and Web 3.0 companies, all of them looking to ingratiate themselves with an audience that hates them and their product. Enter game developer Mark Venturelli, best known for the game Chroma Squad and currently working on Relic Hunter Legends, which is going to be published by Gearbox. He was due to deliver a speech to the event titled The Future of Game Design, but just a few minutes into his presentation he said, "Hey, I fooled you. This talk is actually titled Why NFTs Are a Nightmare." The crowd went absolutely wild, as this is a room full of people who actually give a shit about video games, and anyone who actually cares about this art form is going to be pretty on board with someone hijacking an event sponsored by NFT bros to deliver a speech about why NFTs are hot garbage. The event organizers were absolute heroes. They knew what he was going to do and they approved it, and apparently the sponsors tried to end the presentation midway through, but the event organizers wouldn't allow it. As one person said on Reddit, they scammed the scammers, taking their money to fund the event and then using that event to dunk on them. Priceless. As gratifying as all of this theatre was, it was actually Venturelli's words that were the real highlight. He spoke passionately and persuasively on the subject, talking about the fact that NFT and blockchain enterprises try to buy their way into gaming and are splashing cash because they don't offer any actual value or solutions. Quote, "They're just trying to buy their relevance because they have no actual influence over the future of our industry. If you just give them this space uncontested, you're just giving them exactly what they want and buying their narrative that they're relevant," end quote. He also went on to talk about the concept of a trustless future and how dire that is. At a time when cooperation couldn't be more important, a technology framework based on not trusting anyone is not the cure for what ails us. It was a great dunk on NFT bros, it was a great mic drop moment, but it was also really insightful analysis of the issues at hand, so I really encourage you to check it out. I'll leave a link to that article and YouTube video below. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the week in video games. I'm going to get back to my power washing since that mini golf course isn't going to clean itself. If you had a good time today, then please remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and ding the notification bell. I'm working on a few reviews at the moment, and I'm going to be recording the next episode of the Friends Per Second podcast tomorrow, so look forward to that hitting the channel and podcast platforms this weekend. You've been a great audience. I love you. Shill up out. Video game TV shows are all the rage right now. We got Halo, The Witcher, there's a cyberpunk anime on the way, The Last of Us is hitting HBO, hell, they're even making a TV show based on Horizon Zero Dawn. It's a golden age of video game television. What if you live in a country where some of these shows are geo-blocked so that you can't access them? How are you going to join in on the Twitter circle jerk or the zeitgeist memes if you can't even watch the shows? This is a problem that affects a lot of shows in a lot of places. Australia, for example, there is a lot of stuff, both movies and TV, that doesn't hit our streaming services, or it hits very late, and that sucks. Luckily, there is a way around all that, and that way is Surfshark VPN. Surfshark lets you trick your internet into thinking you're in one place, but you're actually somewhere else. Magic, I know, but the bottom line is that it lets you sidestep geo-blocks so you can watch whatever the hell you damn please. In addition to that stuff, Surfshark is also the best means of protecting your online data. Your passwords, your IP address, your personal information, that's all over the World Wide Web, and in 2021, we can't just not think about that. We have to take steps to protect our data the same way we protect the credit cards we keep in our wallets. Surfshark VPN encrypts your online data, protecting you from identity thefts and hacks, and their clean web feature automatically blocks over 1 million known malicious websites, phishing methods, and other threats. You can use Surfshark on multiple devices at once, which is something that almost no other VPN allows. It's available on pretty much every platform you can think of. It has 24/7 customer support, and it has a full 30-day money-back guarantee. Best of all, they're offering an 83% discount and 3 months free when you use offer code SKILLUP at checkout. Click the link in the description below or visit surfshark.deals/skillup. Thanks Surfshark for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.